Joining us now is John Allen, editor of Crux, who's covering the Pope's visit to Canada. Hi, John.
Hey, Christine.
So, John, it was the moment the Indigenous community was waiting for, the Pope's apology on Canadian soil. How was this different from the apology the Holy Father issued at the Vatican months ago?
I think the main difference, Christine, between April and today is that apology delivered in April happened here in Rome at the Vatican. And while that's significant, given the sacredness of land within indigenous cultures, the idea of the Pope traveling to Canada in his own voice and in person and standing on the very spot. Because remember, when he was in Moscovicis today, he was standing on the grounds of one of the largest of these residential schools. The fact of him doing it there, I think, was enormously significant. Today, by standing in that space, Pope Francis gave those cultures an opportunity to show who they are and what they're about, to celebrate their identity in front of a massive global audience.
Absolutely, and you could see how emotional it was for everybody. But you know, the indigenous groups are looking for more than just healing words from the Pope. They want access to church archives to learn the fate of the children who maybe never returned home, and they want justice. Is that coming?
I think the Catholic Church has, the leadership of the Church in Canada, Pope Francis, have said they want to do everything they can. The problem is there is no centralized database of what happened to these roughly 150,000 Indigenous children. Not all of them ended up in Catholic-run schools, of course. These records are scattered. In some cases, they're missing. We don't know where they are. So there's going to have to be a serious effort carried out by historians, archivists, and other experts. You know, as far as justice goes, look, here's the thing. Most of the perpetrators of these abuses are long since dead. So unfortunately, earthly justice, at least, no longer can reach them. So the best instrument we have, and it is a deeply imperfect one, but nevertheless, it's what we've got, is money. Now, the Catholic Church in Canada has committed to raising about $30 million to try to pay reparations to Indigenous communities. So far, they've raised about 4 or 5. I think the truth of it is that if at the end of this trip, there aren't clear signs that the church is in a full upright and locked position on this archival research and also on financial reparations, there will be a tendency, at least among some of the Indigenous, to think that these apologies rang a bit hollow. That obviously is not what Pope Francis wants. The trick will be the follow-through, and that, unfortunately, is a question we can't answer today.
Right, we'll wait and see. Francis is also visiting an Indigenous church rededicated and reopened a week before his arrival after suffering fire about 2 years ago. How is the Indigenous culture included at Sacred Heart Church, and how has it helped in their healing?
Well, first of all, this is the only Catholic Church in Canada that is specifically designated as the kind of spiritual home of Indigenous peoples. It serves members of the First Nations in Canada, the Métis people, and also the Inuit people. And it has, for some time now, been seen as kind of the heart, if you like, of Indigenous Catholic Canada.
Okay, so what kind of accommodations are being made for the Pope during this trip because of his knee problems? We know he's using a wheelchair. We saw that in the video. He's also taking part in fewer events than usual, right?
Yeah, they're trying to limit him to sort of 2 public events a day, and they're trying to limit the duration of those events so he's not exposed for too terribly long. This is a grueling, nonetheless, I mean, this is a grueling 5 days overseas trip. I think it is worth just reminding people who were watching, Christine, that earlier this month, Pope Francis canceled another overseas trip. He was supposed to go to South Sudan, the Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, that's a trip. Those are both places to which he feels an enormous personal, emotional attachment. It was a trip that had been in the works for a long time. It was something Pope Francis desperately wanted to do, and yet he had to cancel it because of his health struggles. He's had to curtail his schedule in Rome radically, and yet, despite all of that, there he is in Canada. I think if you want the ultimate proof of how important this, what he's called a pilgrimage of penance, is to Pope Francis, and how deep his understanding is of how important it is to the Indigenous peoples of Canada, his presence, despite all of these mammoth obstacles, I think just speaks volumes.
Absolutely. John Allen, editor of Crux, thanks for joining us, and we'll check back in with you again this week.
You bet.
Hi, I'm Christine Persichetti, anchor of Currents News. If you like what you saw, please hit the like button on this video. And if you want to see more content just like it, subscribe and click on the bell for notifications. Thanks for watching, because we are putting your faith in the news.